Hello everyone, in today's video let's create this cute little robot character. Okay, so to get started I'm gonna go to my poly modeling. I'm gonna grab a box and let's just figure out if we want to start with the body or the head of the character, right? So I think I'm gonna start with the head. So let's go ahead and first find a shape that we like, and as you're following along, don't pay any attention to sizes, right? It doesn't really matter what the units are or the scale. Let's just kind of create, more of a organic, not really a precise character. So maybe yours would even come out a little bit different. All right, so first I'm going to make this rectangular shape. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to select the whole shape and click on this bevel, right? So it's going to allow me to bevel my edges. I can adjust the fraction, right? And I can also give me a couple more segments. And if we wanted to, we can also turn on our wireframe to see the result a little bit better. If you're not really sure how many segments you want, this is totally going to depend based on what is this character going to be used for. If you want to use it to create maybe like a short film, and you're not really concerned about the number of polygons, then adding more edges could be beneficial. But at the same time, you don't want to make too many, because if you start rigging the character and animating it, you definitely don't want to add too much resolution, right? Unless it's just going to be like a still image. So again, just decide what is this used for. But the other option that we have is we can select our shape and just press 3 on our keyboard, and that's going to give us a smooth preview, which will also render. So if this was an animated character, this is indeed how it would render. But if you export this out into a game engine, it's going to go back to this, right? It's going to go back to 1. So keep all of that in mind. Depending on your experience and skill level, all of those are important points to understand, right? Well, let's go ahead and smooth the edges. Make sure that our edges are soft, and you can see if I turn off my wireframe, all the edges look smooth and I don't have any sharp lines, right? So that's going to be a great start for our character. The other thing that I could do is, let's maybe take the bottom piece here, and I'm going to press B on my keyboard to activate my self-selection. And if you double click on your tools here, you should see the tool settings tab pop up. And then under self-select, you can adjust the fall-off value, right? So maybe we can press R on our keyboard and go ahead and drag the bottom of the shape to be just a little bit wider than the top. So it's just a little more interesting instead of just having a exact precise square, right? Another thing we can discuss is if we want to add a little volume or a little curve on the side here. For that, we would need to insert a couple edges as well, right? So to insert the edges, again, I'm going to select my shape. I'm going to go to, let's see, I need to go to Mesh Tools, and I can click on this Insert Edge Loop, and I can click on these options here. And let's go ahead and select multiple edge loops, and maybe let's go ahead and see what 3 edge loops would give us. So I'm just going to simply click on any one of these lines. And I think it would be a good idea to add some vertical ones as well, right? Because maybe we want to add a little curve on top. So I'm going to do this as well. I'm going to add 3 edges there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my edge, double click on it, press R, and let's just see if we like just a little curve. And we can also double click on these and maybe raise them up as well. And let's just very playfully add like a nice curve to this, and I think something like that should work. Kind of feels fun and a little more cartoony, right? And you can see the difference. This is kind of a straight line. This will give you a different kind of emotion for the robot's face, but I'm looking for something along these lines, something slightly round. I think that works well. Very nice. Okay, all right, so next let's create a little extrusion for our face. So I'm gonna select all of these faces about here. I'm gonna press B on my keyboard to turn off the soft select. And I'm gonna press Control E to activate my extrusion. And let's just figure out if we want our face to be you know, in or out. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna push this in, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna press Control E one more time, and I'm going to scale in the faces that I just extruded. And now what we can do is we can pull them out. And the interesting thing about this is it's going to create kind of a fun intrusion or a little edge inside, and you can see what that looks like. So instead of just extruding it, we can also create kind of this interesting indentation, right? And I think that is very interesting. So now if we select our shape and press 3 on our keyboard, we can see what that looks like. And I think that looks really cool, and that's pretty much exactly what I was going for. All right, I'm gonna go back to 1, and what I would like to do also is I would like to select, holding down the Shift key, I can select all of these sharp edges here, and let's go ahead and bevel them. So I'm gonna bevel them and set my fraction to about 0.3. I think that's great. And I'm going to be continuously doing this back and forth. I'm going to select my shape and press 3. But again, I'm just going to say this one more time. If I export this out into like Unreal or Unity 3D or any other game engine, it will export looking like this, right? So then it's important that you also, if you wanted to round these up, you would want to bevel these corners as well. But in Maya, we do have this preview by pressing 3, right? All right, let's just keep going. So next, let's go ahead and add some eyes. So for the eyes, instead of playing with this base shape and extruding them out, let's just simply add a couple simple cylinders. So I'm just gonna grab a new shape, do something like this. Holding down the J key, I can rotate this 90 degrees. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to press spacebar, and I'm going to jump into my front view. I'm also going to turn on my wireframe so I can see the position of this a little better. And let's figure out if we like the resolution of this cylinder, right? We can go to our attribute editor, we can go to poly cylinder tab, and we can control the resolution of our mesh, right? I'm going to go 20 is fine. I'm going to go with 20. I'm going to select it, press W. Let's go ahead and position it and figure out where we want the eyes to be. Now, I don't have any intention to create a mouth, so I'm going to be very happy with kind of a large, round eyes. And I am paying attention to this middle line here. So if I press R, maybe I can scale this down a little bit. And before I mirror this over, let's maybe add just a little more detail to this eye. So I'm going to press spacebar and go back into my perspective view. Let's just continue creating more detail to this. So let's go ahead and select maybe this edge here, and let's do a bevel. And I want my bevel to be 0.1. I think that's really cool. Another thing we can do is let's select this here. And let's just do something really interesting. Let's select this, and let's go ahead and click on this button right here. It says duplicate the current selected faces to a new object. So I'm going to click on that, and as soon as I click on it, you can see that if I pull this out, it's going to kind of expand out, which I like. I'm going to do that. And in your outliner, if you open up your outliner, you can see that both shapes are right here. So you have your original cylinder, and now if you click on the second shape, you can see this is the extruded shape that is located in the same group, right? So I'm going to select this new shape and do a let's go ahead and press Ctrl E, and let's just pull it out, giving it some thickness. So I'm just going to give it a little thickness, and now I have something along these lines. I'm going to go to object mode, and I'm going to press, you can press W, or you can select your move. And let's just see if we want to maybe pull this in a little bit so it looks like it's not the same height as the eye, right? And another thing we can do is we can isolate this shape and take a closer look. Maybe let's go ahead and select these faces here. Jump out of isolate mode, turn on X-ray, and I can kind of see how deep this goes. So I can maybe bring this up a little closer, maybe to the surface, you know, a little closer to the surface of the face. I'm going to jump out of the X-ray, and now if I press R, I can scale in this shape. And you can see what that's doing. That's kind of pulling in the faces closer to the original eye. So it's creating kind of a really interesting inset that looks kind of custom to this cylinder, right? And that's just a artistic preference, but I think that looks really cool. I like how the inner line meets the eye. I like how this one is pulled in, but I'm not loving that this outside edge is kind of curved in. You can see what that looks like. So I'm gonna go back to isolate, select just this external edge by itself, and then jump out of the isolate, press R, and just simply scale this out. And I kind of do like how this is maybe is extruding out or angling out instead of in. So I think that is what I was looking for. So something along these lines is great. Let's go ahead and select both of these shapes and let's combine them into one. So I'm going to go ahead and combine it, and I'm going to clear my history, and you can see what that did in the outliner. Right now we just have the main box and we have this new eye that is combined into one shape. So it's just to simplify it and kind of keep maybe better track of it. Now I do see that I'm crossing this center line, so I would like to make my eye a little smaller. If you're not convinced that your pivot is centered, make sure you click on this button here. That's gonna make sure that it is centered, and you can kind of scale it in and keep it in the center. You can press W, and you can also move this out if you feel like, you know, you want to make sure that it's not going inside the surface, it's kind of outside. I hope that makes sense. So just going back and forth, feel free to play around with your shape. And then again, if we select all of this and press 3, we can see how that's looking. Very cool. Let's go ahead and maybe do a little more work on here. So I'm gonna, now here's the trick. So how do you select? You can hold on the shift key and you can select all of these faces here and go all the way around. But is there a faster way to select this? And you might say, yeah, of course you can just drag it, right? Now, if you drag it, the dangerous thing about doing this is that sometimes if the cylinder has other sides right in the back, you will select those as well. So for example, if I go into X-ray mode, I can see that some of these back faces were selected as well. And maybe that's not desirable because I don't really want to do that, right? Honestly, I can even delete all of those back faces. But the question is, how do we select these in a fast way without grabbing the ones in the back? Well, the trick is, if you go into your tool settings, there's something called camera-based selection. If you activate that and do the same thing, you just drag the selection over and then go back into the X-ray, you can see that it's no longer affecting anything that's in the back. It's only going to grab the front faces. So it's a really powerful, cool little trick. Keep in mind that's there. The only downside to this is then remembering to uncheck it, because if you leave it and you continue modeling with it, a lot of times it will cause trouble as well. So just keep that in mind. All right, I'm going to press Control E, and I'm going to just kind of pull in all of these faces right here. Do Control E one more time, and I'm going to pull them in. And this is going to be the way I'm visualizing this. All of these are going to be having emission, right? So that's going to be like a lit, glowing eyeball, right? And if we wanted to, we can even maybe angle these just a little. All right, let's do a little preview, and I think I'm liking it. The only thing I'm not happy about is if I press 3 and smooth this out, I'm losing that inside edge that I actually liked. So to maintain this sharp edge, what I need to do is I'm going to select both of these edges here and do a bevel and turn my fraction to 0.1 and just add one more segment inside. So you can see what I'm doing. I created kind of a triple edge, right? And what that's going to allow me to do, and you know what, I'm going to do one here as well. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to bevel it, make it very small, and add one more segment. Now, the cool thing about that is if you press 3, you can see that now the edges are being held a lot better, and now it's nice and sharp, right? So you always have full control over your edges if you want them kind of bubbly, or if you want them nice and sharp. And if you turn off your wireframe, you can see what that looks like, right? So I think that looks really cool and very clean, and I'm happy with this eye. I'm gonna grab this eyeball and I'm gonna click on this button here called mirror, and let's see. So I need to mirror it. You can see it on X, not Z. So I'm gonna switch this to X, and now I have two eyes, which is great. If we wanted to, I was gonna say we can merge all of these together, but let's just for now keep it nice and separate. Now don't forget to save your work, so do Control S. Next, let's go ahead and maybe give them a couple. Let's maybe give them a couple bolts that kind of are simple but yet add a little more interesting detail. If we, for example, brought this into Substance Painter, we can of course add detail using the normal map, but for the sake of this, because this is so simple, I think it would be really neat if we just gave them a couple bolts that are literally sticking out. So I'm going to select a box, drag a box out, and I'm going to smooth this out. Something like this is pretty much perfect. Let's go ahead and select all of these faces here, press delete, double click on these, press delete, and now what I would like to do is I would like to make this into kind of a bolt. So I'm gonna select this line here, and I can even do this as well. Let's do a bevel, okay, and let's just select these interfaces here, and let's do an extrude, and let's just push this in. So we have something that looks like that. All right, very cool. Another thing we can do is I'm going to turn back my wireframe back on. Now, when you do bevel, a lot of times you need to check your edges and make sure to stay good modeling practice. For example, you can see that this has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 corners, right? And normally you want to stay with quads. So to clean this up, you can do this manually, or you can just select the shape, go to mesh, do cleanup, go to options, and in here you can say cleanup matching polygons, and just say faces with more than 4 sides, and just do cleanup. And you can see what that did. It cut the polys to make sure that it stays either as a tri or a quad, and that is a good idea. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, I'm gonna select all of these and press 3, and you can see what that looks like. Let's go ahead and take our little bolt, make it a little smaller, and let's go ahead and first go into the front view, and let's just position it in the four corners. So I'm going to put one here, and I can rotate it. And you know what, before I copy them over, I do want to position them just a little bit better. So I'm going to select this, and let's just go ahead and pull this in and make sure that it's sitting at the right angle. So I'm going to press F on my keyboard, grab my, I can press E, and let's just rotate this to match the angle of the face, right? So something along these lines. I can press W, I can move this in, press E to rotate it, and then press R if you needed to scale it. It's up to you. So I think something like this is what I was looking for. All right, very nice. Let's just grab this guy now here, and we can also center our pivot, make sure it's nice and centered. And let's go ahead and simply duplicate it. So I'm gonna press Control D. I'm gonna make another copy of it. And what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna go to my channel box, and in my translate X values, let's just get rid of this -1 and make it positive. And that's going to flip it to the other side in the precise same location, right? Now the only difference is obviously it's rotated in the wrong way, so we do need to adjust our rotation. So I'm going to do something like this, and if we wanted to, we can also change maybe the angle of the screw. And now let's go ahead and do the same thing for the bottom, right? So I'm going to select both of these, do Control D. So now I have two of them, and I'm just going to simply move them down. And I'm going to adjust them manually. I'm doing that on purpose because I do want to make it feel like it's not angled the same way as far as the screw goes, right? So I like the fact that I can rotate this, and that's the reason I'm doing it this way. So maybe, let's see, this one could be maybe pointing something like that. And I'm going to select this, press F, and let's go ahead and also adjust the angle of it. Now keep in mind, we can make sure the pivot is straight, and that looks great. And let's go ahead and just maybe make this one face something like that. Very cool. So let's go ahead and select these. I'm going to select, holding down the Shift key, I can select all of these guys, and I'm going to combine them into one and clear my history. So now I just have one thing, and we can even call it bolts. If we wanted to, we can call these eyes, and let's call this one head. Very cool. All right, so let's see, what else can we do? Maybe our character could use some ears. How about we do some ears? So for the ears, let's go ahead and do the same thing. Let's just maybe simply add a cylinder, right? So, but maybe extrude it in a different way. So I'm gonna grab another cylinder. Let's go ahead and create it in the middle, holding down the J key. I'm gonna rotate this 90 degrees, press spacebar, and maybe we can go into this view instead. And we can move it into position. If you wanted to see something, if you want to see through it, you can always turn on your X-ray. And of course, turn on the polyframe. If these other lines are messing you up, you can turn the grid off, so you can only, so you're just looking at the grid of our mesh. And I'm gonna kind of center it right in the middle, and I do like the ear to be relatively large. So maybe scale it to something along these lines. All right, let's go ahead and go into this view, press W, and just pull this ear out. And we just have to decide if we want to angle it. So I think I do want to angle it. I'm going to press E and just kind of match the rotation of the surface here. Kind of like that. I think that's cool. Let's go ahead and select this edge here. Let's go ahead and bevel it. And maybe instead of 3, we can do something like, how about we do 2.5? Let's go ahead and turn this button on and make our selection. I want to make sure I'm in the face mode. I'm going to do Control E and just extrude this in. Press Control E again and just pull this in. And just like before, I would like to make these edges nice and sharp, so I'm going to select all of these here, and let's do a bevel with a segment inside, right? Go to object mode and let's go ahead and press 3 and see what that looks like. So there you go. So there's your ear, and I do need to make sure that this whole thing is centered. So let's go ahead and go back into this front view, and I can see that for some reason my mesh here is not centered. So what I need to do is let's go ahead and select the main head and press the move tool, holding down the X key. I can kind of snap it in the center. You can see now that looks much better, right? It's aligned with the grid. And I can do the same thing with my bolts, make sure that they are centered as well. And you can of course click on center pivot, then holding down the X key, you can just kind of move them around and snap it to the grid line in the center. So that's better. Now if I select this one more time and do the mirror again and switch this to X as I did previously, you can see now they are exactly the same, right? So that was important to fix and pay attention to. All right, so that's looking good. Let's maybe add just a little more detail. I'm gonna select this edge here, and let's just add just a little detail. So I'm gonna bevel this, change my fragment, and add another segment inside. I'm gonna select this inside segment that I just created, and then I'm gonna press R and just kind of pull this in. And I think that is really cool. Let's go ahead and take a look. You can see what that looks like. It's kind of created an interesting detail going around the face, and we can even do something like that on the back as well. Maybe there's like a little panel, right? So let's do the same thing here. I'm going to select this, do a bevel, change my fraction, add a segment, and then go to edge and double click, press R, and just pull this in, right? So you have something that looks like that. And then we can maybe even add a panel back here as well. Maybe this opens up and that's where his little brain is located, right? So I can do Control E, and I can maybe pull this in, something like that. I kind of like that. Let's do R, and let's just scale this up a little and take a look. I think that totally works as far as like the back of the head goes. All right, so next let's go ahead and create the body. So one of the things we could do is let's select all the pieces, press W, and just move all this stuff up. And if we wanted to, my intention is to combine all of this, so this is going to be renamed. But for now, if we wanted to stay nice and organized, let's name these ears. All right, and for the body, let's think about this. So normally, typically what I would do is I would just grab a box or a cylinder and start sculpting like a simple body for a character such as this. But I feel like let's do something more interesting. Let's go ahead and grab a torus or a donut, and let's just adjust the thickness of it. So maybe something along these lines. I'm gonna go to my attribute editor, and in the in here in the subdivisions, let's just maybe I do like this to be kind of high resolution, so maybe something like 24 makes sense. And let's turn this guy down in the height, so maybe let's go down to something like 12, so we don't have too many polys to worry about. And you know what, I'm just going to turn this down to maybe 20. So I got 20 and 12, that's what I'm looking at. I'm going to grab my rotate, hold down the J key, and just move this sideways, right? So this, I'm going to use this, and I'm going to go 90 degrees. I'm going to use this as my body, just to kind of experiment and do something unusual. So I'm going to do this, and next thing I would like to do is let's go to our channel box and let's zero out the translation value. So I'm going to select all three of these, press 0 and press enter. All right, we'll do that, and then let's grab press R for scale. Let's just scale this out. So let's decide what we want our body to be, and if we wanted to, I'm going to keep this round, and I'll tell you why. The reason I'm keeping this round and not doing something like this is because my intention is to use this opening for shoulders, right? So I think these would be cool shoulder sockets for a character such as this. But I do want the body to be a little bit smaller, so he kind of maintains his cute proportions. So let's decide, you know, what the proportions should be based on the body and the head. I think I'm going to go with something like this, and I'm visualizing larger feet and larger hands, right? So I'm going to select this so far, go to Mesh Display, and let's go ahead and do soft edges and just make sure we're looking at soft edges, and we can adjust this at any time. So in the meantime, let's just actually turn on our wireframe and let's continue to model, right? So the one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select this ring here and here, and let's press R and let's just scale this in. So we have something like that. And if we want to, we can even scale this out, so it's not maybe so deep in, so it's somewhere around here. And again, I'm thinking of these as a shoulder sockets. Now, one thing that I'm not loving is I'm not loving this really sharp line. And you can see it's on both sides, so that we could do a couple things. We can hold down the Shift, select both of these, holding down Control, we can press Delete, and we can have something like this. That's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is, of course, to bevel it. But I think this works. I think I'm liking this shape and how it feels so far, right? Now, if you start seeing strange, dark coloring, and it's maybe interfering with your modeling, just know, maybe you're new to modeling, just know that all of that has to do with edges. So it's totally up to you. If, for example, if I say soft and hard edges and I go to options and it's currently set to 30, if I say apply, you can see how that cleans it up. It's just a total preference. But these adjustments are important because if you do export this model like this, for example, to Substance Painter or a game engine, it will retain the edges as you're setting them in Maya. So that's really important, right? So let's kind of be mindful of that and make sure we don't have anything looking strange in Maya, even during modeling, right? All right, let's just continue. So I think this is cute. If we wanted to, we can maybe entertain the idea of pulling out a little torso. Let's see what that looks like. Maybe pull this down a little bit, and maybe this will allow us to use this space here for kind of the side legs, for the leg connection. So we can use this for the legs, and this could be the shoulders. I think that would be cute, and that would totally work. If you didn't want to do that, you can just have the legs come out straight from the bottom, right? So again, it's total preference. So I think I'm going to go with something like this and just go ahead and use this space. All right, again, and as I pulled out the bottom, you can see that it added strange shading right there. So again, to fix it, what I could do is, for example, I can grab this ring here and go and do hard edges, right? And you can see that kind of cleans it up. And even if I turn my wireframe off, you can see what that looks like, right? So I'm pretty happy with that. We can decide if we want this to be smooth or not. If you wanted to have these not to be sharp, right? You can of course set this to be a soft edge. And maybe that looks a little better, right? So again, keep that in mind. It's really important because this will affect your model, how it, the final model and how it's looking. So I think I do like this. I'm going to also preview this as 3 and see what that looks like. All right, and if we wanted to maybe to maintain these sharp edges here, let's go ahead and kind of crease them, add a little bevel, right? As we keep doing before. So I'm gonna add one segment in here and let me just take a look. And that, I think that looks great. That's what I was going for. All right, great. Let's see. So I'm gonna turn on my wireframe and let's just keep going. So the next thing we should do is let's add the little shoulders. For the shoulders, I'm gonna keep it super simple. I'm just gonna grab a box and just go ahead and do a smooth. And that's gonna be essentially my shoulder. So I'm gonna take this and holding down the X key, I can snap it to the center line here. I can also go into, let's go into the side view and just kind of position it in the center, right? We can also move it into position and take a look in the perspective view and see what that feels like. I'm gonna go something like this. What I'm looking for is I'm looking at this line here, this middle line, right? So I'm gonna go right before the middle line. And the reason for that is because I'm gonna use this here to do Control E. And I'm gonna extrude this out to make it look like it's almost like a connector that goes inside. So do something like that. I think that is great. And if we wanted to, we could press W and just move it a little bit in a better position so this is visible a little more. And now one thing that I do want to point out is that we do have all this extra geometry. If I isolate this, I know that all of this here is going to be extra and no one's going to ever see it. And for that reason, maybe we don't need to have all of this. I'm going to hold down the Shift key, press period on my keyboard to grow my selection, and just press delete, right? And we can just clean this up. Another thing we could do is maybe we can select this edge here, and then hold down the Shift key, select this edge, press R, and maybe just straighten this out so it's nice and straight. Press W and we can just move it into a better position. And I think that is what I was looking for. Let's go ahead and jump out of isolate and take a look. And technically we could also delete, I guess, all of these faces as well, right? No one's gonna see this either. All right, I think that is a amazing looking shoulder. I'm going to mirror it to the other side on the X. And now I have 2 of them. All right, so now we have shoulders, we have a body, we have the head. Let's press 3 and make sure everything is nice and smooth. All right, so now as I'm looking here, I would like this here to be a little more interesting. So I'm going to grab both of these on both sides and let's do a bevel. And just like before, let's go ahead and add one more segment in there. And then I'm going to grab this newly created segment on both sides. Grab my scale and let's just pull this in. And by pulling it in, you can see what it's doing. It's kind of creating that nice separation, right, between this piece here and the middle piece. And that is what I was going for. So I think it's like a nice, interesting rim, right? If I turn on my wireframe, I can see it a little better. Another thing you can do when you're previewing your work as you're working, you can always turn on the ambient occlusion, and you can see what that does. It kind of adds ambient occlusion or a shadow for your perspective view. Now be careful with this because I've said this before, but it does slow down at least my computer. So this does, you know, make your model a little heavier on the processor. But you can actually control these values as well. If you go to render, go to viewport 2.0 and go to options. In here you have something called screen space ambient occlusion, and right here is the amount and the radius. So if you pay close attention to these shadows, you can see that I can control them by making them more or less intense, right? So for the sake of preview, I think 2 is maybe a little too much. So how about like 1.5 is actually a good number. All right, next let's create the hand for our character. So the hand should be could be as simple as just let's grab a box and drag a box on our grid, and let's figure out to make the hand. Let's make the fingers first. So I'm going to do something that looks like this. That's going to be my a portion of my finger. If I hold on the X key, I can snap it right in the center, right? And I would like to utilize the grid here to make sure that all of these links for the fingers are about the same distance. So we can rescale this once the hand is built, but in the meantime, let's just scale this to what it makes sense as far as using the grid for snapping. So I'm going to press R and make this kind of large, about like this. And what I'm going to do next is let's do a bevel, and let's change maybe the fraction to something like 3. We could I'm going to leave the segments at 1, that's fine. So if you press 3, you can see what that looks like. And you can see that I made it into kind of a rectangular shape, so it's more of a kind of a chubby finger, right? So it matches the character a little bit better. So you don't want to have kind of a not proportional long skinny fingers or anything. It has to be, I think it should be kind of a, you know, thick, chunky hand, right? So I think this makes sense. So I'm going to grab this. I'm going to press Ctrl D, press W, hold out the X key, and I'm going to snap it forward to the next link down. And let's position them together like this. I'm going to select both of them, press R, and I'm going to scale them down. And I'm going to scale them down deciding how much spacing I want in between the fingers. So I'm going to go for something, you know, something like this. I think that is perfect. All right, I'm going to grab this guy, press Ctrl D, hold down the, press W, hold down the X key, and snap it forward. So now I have this finger that has the same spacing between the 3 links, right? Which means I can also grab a cylinder, drag a cylinder out. I can press R, maybe make it a little longer. I can press E, hold down the J key. I can rotate this 90 degrees. Maybe go to the attribute editor and let's change the subdivision to something a little bit smaller. How about 10? We'll go to 10. Let's go ahead and grab this, hold on the X key and snap it to the grid. And let's attempt to put this into a position in between the 2 links. And if you press spacebar, you can also go to the side view. maybe press F if you wanted to see a little better, and let's do R, and let's just scale it to where it kind of feels good as far as being the connector between the two fingers. I think that makes sense. I'm going to press Ctrl D and put the other one maybe here, and do one more maybe here. Alright, let's go back to the perspective view and take a look. Alright, so this is going to be kind of the end of the finger, and this is going to be the part where it's connecting to the hand, right? And if we wanted to, we can also grab maybe all of these points here, select all the verts, press R, and scale them down and maybe in. I can press W and even move this in a little bit. Again, I don't want my fingers to be long. And I think that looks really good as far as being a finger. If you wanted to, you could turn on your wireframe, just keep a track of the topology, right? Alright, let's say I'm happy with this. I'm going to select all of these. I'm going to combine them, clear my history, and let's jump into the top view. And let's go ahead and press Ctrl D, W, and let's just move this aside. So maybe figure out how far you want the distance of these fingers to be. So I'm just going to eyeball it. I'm going to go for something like this. I'm going to press Ctrl D and do one more. So we could snap it to the grid, but I think this totally works. So we have 3 fingers, and you can see again they're kind of short, right? So they're not super long or kind of a human looking. Like this is more of a kind of a cute hand, right? That's what I'm going for. The other thing that I could do is I can select one of these, press Ctrl D, then press E, and let's rotate this. This is going to be our thumb. Press W and maybe put it into position somewhere in this area. Let's go back and take a look. So now we have this thing here. So next we definitely need a palm of our hand. So for the palm of the hand, again, I'm going to grab a box, just do a simple box, and let's figure out maybe the thickness. So it should be a little thicker than, obviously, maybe double the size of the fingers, right? And I'm going to grab my move, hold on the X key. I do want to make sure that it's centered, right? And it's kind of, we can put it into position. Let's go to the top view and let's kind of figure out, as far as the scaling goes, where we want this to be. So I'm going to kind of center this piece here and figure out how much of it I want it to be connected. And then I can go to my verts and just move these around. And you have to figure out if you want your hand to be, you know, the size of it. But I think my hand is going to be going right before the fingers. So I'm not going to go out. I'm going to go inwards. Something, I think, like that. Makes sense. I'm going to grab these points here, move them back. Not too much. Maybe something like this. So it still maintains this kind of a short hand rectangular look, right? And next, let's grab this and maybe move it into a better position. And now we just need to make a connection between this and this in some kind of a clever, creative way, right? So I'm gonna go back into my perspective view and take a look and see what we got. Now, one of the things that I would like this palm of the hand to match the fingers. So I do need to bevel it and maybe change the fraction to be somewhat tight. So it's 0.1. I think that makes sense. Let's go ahead and save our work. All right, so the next thing I would like to do is I need to make a connection between this and this, right? How do I do this? There's a few things that are coming to mind. One of them is I think it would be cool if this thumb was a little bit lower, right? Like a real, kind of a real thumb. So what I like to do is I would like to rotate this on the angle, press W and just move it down. And I think that is a little bit better. And another thing we can do is we can press E and maybe also rotate it this way. and that feels a little more like a hand, right? And if you wanted to scale it, we could press R and maybe scale it down just a little bit, because typically your thumb is a little bit smaller, right? So it's totally up to you, but I think that looks good. I can move it a little bit closer, and now let's just talk about how can we connect this to this, right? What would be a cool way of doing it? I think we can select this shape, go to Insert Edge Loop, Options, let's do Relative Distance, and let's just insert an edge loop maybe here. I'm going to do another one right here, and I'll do one more right here. Okay, and what that's going to allow me to do is it's going to allow me to select this face, right, and press W. I'm going to be able to move this out and kind of extrude it outwards to create a nice space for this thumb, right? You can press F if you wanted to kind of zoom in. And now the biggest trick is just going to be pressing something like E and just angling it to match the angle of the thumb, right? So I'm going to press W and definitely move it out more. So let's go ahead and do something like this. I think that makes sense. Go into object mode, let's grab this finger, and now let's just simply put it into a better position. So something like that. Now, one thing that could help us a lot is if we if we go into the object mode, right? We could press D, and then hold. While holding the D key, you can also press V, and then take this center pivot and snap it right to the center vertex here. And now if you move this around in object mode, you can see that it's going to be much easier to kind of position this, and even if you press E, it's going to rotate it from this point here as well, right? So now it's just a matter of finding the right angle and the right position for your thumb. So I'm going to leave mine about centered. I think that makes perfect sense. And let's take a look. So I think this is a nice hand for this type of character. Now, one thing we could do if we wanted to, again, do Control S to save your work. But if you select all of this and you want to preview it as a smooth preview, press 3, and you can see what that looks like. So one of the things that I would suggest is maybe definitely holding better edges of the cylinders, right? And definitely add more geometry to the hand as well. So there's a quick way of doing this. You could press 1, select this shape here, and then go to Edit Mesh, Add Divisions, Options, Exponentially. I'm going to set it to 1 and just do Apply. And now you can see it's still very low, right? 192. But now if I select this and press 3, you can see that it's much better. And we can turn off our wireframe, but you can see it's much better at holding that position with the edges as far as the hand goes, right? So that's a cool way to quickly hold your edges. And if you wanted to, you can adjust some of this here, press W, and just maybe smooth this out a little. So again, it all depends on what type of character you're building and what is it going to be used for, right? Is it going to be used in the game or needs to be low poly, or you're fine with having a little extra geometry? So I think that is great. Let's see what's going on here. So there's some smoothness that we can smooth all this out by just moving this away a little more. And you can see how I fix that, right? Let's do the same thing here as well. All right, now let's do the same thing with all of these. I'm gonna because I don't really care for this to be super low poly, I'm just simply gonna do the same trick. I'm gonna add a division to this, and you can see what that did. It gave me more geometry. So now if I select all these and press 3, you can see that they're being held much better as far as holding the shape for the cylinder, right? So I think this totally works. All right, so that takes care of our hand. So the next thing we should do is let's select this hand. I can press 1, and I'm gonna combine it into 1 and clear my history. Okay, and if I wanted to, I could call this hand for now. Let's see what this is. This is our shoulder, and this is our body, right? Next, let's go ahead and put our arm into position. So I'm going to hold on D, V. I'm going to take this pivot and snap it right here. And now if I hold down the J key, I can rotate this around, right? So I'm going to go jump into my top view and kind of get it into position. Let's talk about the scale of this hand. So I'm going to definitely make it a lot smaller and just figure out what I want my scale to be. So I think something along these lines makes sense. You can press W, move it up, and kind of align it with the shoulder or the arm, right? And I could do maybe a better job going into this view and making sure that sort of in alignment. Okay, now another trick we could do is if you feel like you would like our hand, or your hand to be thicker or thinner, hold on the X key. I can also make sure it's aligned this way. But one of the things that we could do is if you select it, press F, and because we combined it, we can actually inflate it or deflate it. But in this case, I want to show you a trick. If you want to inflate something, if you go to verts, select all the verts, and go to move, and then switch it to normal, you can find a letter N, and then what you can do is you can inflate your geometry. So it's a really cool way to maybe add additional thickness if you decide that's something you want to do in Maya. So that's a cool way to inflate things. So let's go ahead and jump back into object mode, and take a look. I think this is great. I'm gonna press 3, and all right, so another thing I could do is, again, I can adjust the scale. Maybe we can make it a little smaller, figure out how far we want our hands to be. And now let's just create a connection between our shoulder and our hand, right? And that could be, let's do something simple. Let's just create a cylinder. And I'm going to take my cylinder and holding down the J key, I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. Go to my attribute editor, and let's give ourselves more height. So I'm going to give myself 12. Press R and scale this out. And I definitely don't need 20 going all the way around. How about I'm going to go to something like 12. I think that's great. Let's go ahead and hold down the X key and just snap it in the center. Right, and then if we go back into the side view, we can also kind of position it to where it needs to be. So somewhere in this area, I'm going to press R, adjust my scale. So that's going to be the arm. And one of the things that I would like to do is I'm going to create a space right between each piece, and we can make like a little connector that connects the arm, but I do want to make it skinnier so it doesn't feel, so it feels a little more proportionate. And another thing we can do is we can select all of these rings here. Let's select all of these and let's do Control E, and let's just pull all of this in. Okay, very cool. And now what we should do is let's create a connection that is connecting to the shoulder. So I'm going to select all of these, do Control E, and simply pull this out. Okay. Then press R and just scale it a little more. And you can see how the this piece is going into the shoulder, and then this piece is going right into the hand. So you can just make sure that it's kind of makes sense. You can press F if you needed to, and just make sure that it feels nice and kind of connected and welded together. Now, one thing I'm realizing is that my hand does need to be a little thicker here. So I'm going to select these faces here. I'm going to press B on my keyboard, and I'm going to adjust my soft select. So I'm going to do 0.2. And now if I move this down, I can adjust the thickness of my hand to be something along these lines. I think that works. Let's take a look. Very nice. Let's press 3 and we can see what that looks like. Alright, now if you wanted to flip this to the other side, we can do a mirror on X and do the same thing with this. I'm going to select it and also mirror it on X. And now we have two hands on each side, right? I think it would be a good idea to add our neck next. I'm going to grab a donut and just do something like this. All right, let's go to the attribute editor and let's maybe dial down the resolution. I'm gonna leave it at 18 by maybe by 12. I think that's pretty good. Grab this, hold on the X key, I'm gonna center it, and let's go ahead and do something like this. And now for the neck, I think what I would like to do is I'm going to hold on the X key and actually center it and then raise it up into position. Press F. Alright, so then this is going to be kind of the connector between the body and the neck. And let's do one more. Press Control D and add one to the head as well. So you have something like that. And for the pieces in between, I suppose we can just add a simple sphere. I think that would make sense. I'm just going to grab a box, draw a box out, go to Mesh, do a Smooth, go to Object Mode, and let's go ahead and zero this, zero out these values. Make sure it's nice and centered, and then grab our move brush. Move, and just move it into position. Press F. And then press R to scale it down. And I think something like that totally works for a neck. And this will also allow the character to pivot and spin around, right? Because we don't really want a long neck. I think that is perfect. Let's select all of this and press 3 and make sure it looks good. Very nice. I think the next step is, let's go ahead and work on our feet. Alright, so for the legs, I think what we should do is let's grab pieces that we maybe already did to simplify things. So I'm going to grab both of these pieces, press Control D, and just move them down. And I'm going to, let's go ahead and maybe move this down a little bit, press R, maybe make it a little bit larger. And I'm gonna grab both of these and combine them into one, then press E and just simply rotate it into kind of a hip, right? So maybe we can even go into the front view and just do kind of a better job positioning into place. Go into the perspective view and just make sure it looks good. It's definitely way too large. I'm gonna press R and just kind of scale it in. And I think that is a perfect hip if you ask me. So I'm gonna mirror it to the other side. Let's go ahead and mirror it on X. All right, so now we have two. Very nice. I would like to move and make sure I'm in world. I'm gonna select everything we got, press W, and just move it up a little bit so I have some room for the feet. And if I go into the side view, I can see this is kind of the floor right here, right? So I do want my feet to be relatively large to stay kind of with the, kind of a cute factor. So I'm gonna move this up, maybe to something about like this. And again, this is gonna be the floor. So I need a big feet and maybe, a little room for maybe some kind of a knee as well. All right, very cool. So as far as the feet goes, I think we should just do something like, let's grab a box and let's just simply scale the box out. And let's just figure out like the size and position of our feet. So maybe they could be out a little bit, and press R. Let's figure out kind of the scale. I think something along these lines. I also would like to add, because his feet are short, he's not going to be able to walk very fast. So I think it's important for him to have some kind of a way to boost himself. And for that, he's going to need rollerblades. I think that would be a quick way for him to move around fast without running, right? I think that makes sense. So let's do that. Let's create kind of a cute little rollerblades for this guy. So I'm gonna grab this top piece here, press R, and maybe do something like this. Press W, and just kind of custom shape a foot on the top of the foot. I can grab this edge here and maybe press W and move it into position. So we have something along these lines. I think that's great. You can grab this back piece, move it out a little. All right, I think that's great. I can grab this and move it in a little more. So now you have something that looks like this. That's great. I'm gonna select all of this and do a bevel. And let's go ahead and figure out if we want to add maybe a segment. I'm gonna keep it at 1 for now and just see what it looks like if I press 3. All right, I think that works. Let's go back to 1 and let's just make some room for the wheels. So I'm gonna do extrude and do something like this. Maybe make this a little bit longer. Do Control E and just pull this in. Okay. And now for the wheels, let's just do something as simple as just grabbing a cylinder. And holding down the J key, I can flip this over. Let's take a look at the resolution. I think I can dial this down to maybe 14, that's fine. I can make it a little bit wider and smaller. And let's just figure out what it looks like from maybe the front view first. I'm gonna press F and press R. Let's just figure out if we like how it feels from the front. I think that's going to be about the thickness. That makes sense. Let's go into maybe this view. And let's put it into position. I'm going to press Ctrl D and just do a couple more. Maybe we'll have 3 of them. All right. Make sure they're about the same distance apart, right? Let's take a look. If we wanted to add maybe something more interesting to this foot so it doesn't feel so large and solid, I'm going to grab both of these shapes here, extrude them in, something like that. Maybe do something like this, and then let's move them up a little bit higher, and then I'm going to press Delete key. I'm going to double click on this edge here, and honestly that didn't work, so I'm going to select this, and I do need to move this up, something like that. Now in this case, if I want to make sure that they're in the same kind of level, what I could do is I could select the tops of each, then press R and kind of scale this in and down and make sure that they are aligned, and do the same thing with this. Just kind of scale them in, and this way I'm certain that they're going to be the same height, right? Alright, so now if I double click on this edge, hold down the Shift key, double click on this edge and do a bridge, you can see what that does, right? It's connecting both sides, giving us like this cool opening in between, and maybe that is a cool touch that is kind of unusual. Let's go ahead and select, it's still selected, so I can just do a bevel. Okay, very nice. Let's press 3 and see what that looks like. If you wanted to hold the shape a little better, obviously you're gonna have to crease these edges, so maybe we can do that. Let's select these and do another bevel. Change the fraction to be tiny, maybe add another segment in between. And now, of course, as before, if you select it and press 3, it's holding the shape a little bit better as far as the edge. What that looks like, we can figure out if we like this to be kind of round, right? If we don't, we could select it and do the same trick. We can go to Edit Mesh, Add Divisions, and add more geo to our kind of a rollerblade. And then if we press 3, you can see what that looks like. It's a little more, let me jump out of the wireframe, but it's a little more square. So I'm actually gonna go with this. I kind of like this. I think that totally works. It does feel like this could be even larger proportion-wise for this guy to balance on these rollerblades. I think he needs to, let's press R and just make them a little bit larger. I think this feels a little bit better. Okay, let's add more detail to this. So I'm gonna go ahead and keep working on this. Let's select all of these. I'm gonna make sure my spacing makes sense. Okay, and I could combine them into one. I'm gonna go into actually the side view. I'm gonna go to my side view and do isolate, and then if I select these faces holding down the Shift key, I can select all of these faces, and I know it's gonna select them on both sides, right? Which means I can do Control E, and I can scale this down, and then I can, let's go ahead and punch a hole through. So I'm gonna press Delete. All right, let's select this edge here and this, and let's go ahead and do a bridge, And now I'm just going to repeat the same for the other two. I can just select it and press G. G will allow you to repeat the last command. So let's go ahead and do this one more time. Just press G. Let's jump out of isolate and take a look. And I think adding these holes kind of creates a fun effect, right? A fun look to this, to the rollerblades. Maybe we can lower this so you can see it a little bit better. Another thing we can do is obviously, let's select all of this and let's figure out if we want to bevel our edges. Press 3. And I think that looks really cool. All right. We can keep adding more and more detail if we wanted to. We could maybe, let's select all of this and press Ctrl E, and let's just push this in. Okay. We can select maybe these guys here. Let's do Ctrl E. I'm going to Control E one more time and just kind of do something like this. All right, and we can do something back here as well. Let's select all of these and do Control E. And just scale it in, do another Control E, push it in, and maybe pull it out. Just having fun. Let's select these, press R, and maybe scale them in a little more. Alright, next I'm going to select this and mirror it to the other side on X. So now I have two of them. And I need to do the same thing with the wheels. Let's go ahead and mirror it on X. I'm gonna go into my side view. I need to jump out of the isolation mode. And let's press R. And maybe let's just make this just a little bit longer. And if we wanted to, we can maybe press W, move this wheels over. And let's do Control D, and let's just give us a few more. All right. And now I just need to delete the ones in the back. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm just gonna double click on this, hold down the Shift key, double click on that, press delete. And I'm really liking the feet to be large because I think it's important again to keep the balance, right? To make the connection between this and this, let's just do something simple like we did with the arms. I think we can even just use this actually. Let's do Control D and just move this down. And I'm going to select one end of it and just delete it. And just put this into position. So I'm going to jump into the front here. Let's press R, scale it down. We can even scale it this way. Press E, rotate it. If we wanted this to be, to make it look, you know, a little different, let's go ahead and select all of these. I'm going to press B to activate my selection. I'm going to press E and kind of rotate them to make sure it's aligned a little bit better. I can press W to move it up. And let's go ahead and also move this into a better position. Press W, maybe adjust this a little bit. I'm going to do the same thing with this. I think that makes sense. If we wanted to, again, we could make this a little thicker by going to move, let's go to vertex mode, select all of our verts, switch this to normal, and just pull out the N, if you can find it. Maybe make it a little thicker. I'm going to go ahead and mirror it to the other side. And it definitely still feels like it's not strong enough. So I'm going to select all of these and I'm going to expand it even more on N. All right, I think that's a little better. Let's add maybe a little panel to the front of the character. I'm just going to do Control E, and I'm going to pull it in, and then just scale it out a little bit. Do another Control E, and just pull this up. Okay. Maybe let's add one here as well. And lastly, I think maybe we can do one in the back. And I think that is the last thing we can do. We can even select more than one if we wanted to. And let's go ahead and do Control E. Let's pull it in. Control E again and just pull it out. All right, and you can see what that looks like. So just quickly, you can quickly add more and more detail. But at this point, I'm pretty happy with this. I think the next step is, let's go ahead and pose this character and do maybe like a quick rendering here in Maya, okay? And the one thing I strongly suggest is that you just kind of review your proportions. Everything seems pretty good to me, except it feels like this neck feels a little too large for some reason. So maybe I can stretch this out and we can center the pivot, go to object mode, and just maybe keep it nice and skinny. I think that is important so it kind of matches the arms and the legs of the character. I would even argue that it needs to be skinnier. So maybe what we should do is, let's make this, let's do this. I'm gonna connect all of these into one and then press R and just scale this whole thing down and maybe up. I'm going to select this edge inside there, press R, and just scale it in. Alright, and I think that makes sense. That feels a little bit better. Proportion-wise, it didn't make sense that the character had a kind of a strong, thick neck. Alright, so I think I'm going to stop the tutorial here at this point. So the next thing that I'm going to do on my end really quick, and I really don't want to drag this out for another hour. I think this is getting too long. If someone wants me to make a video on how I'm going to do this next step, let me know. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a human IK joins by just simply creating a skeleton. And I do have a few other videos showing how to do this. So you just create a skeleton and you just align it with the various parts of the character. And then you can just bind the skin. And then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to select each piece and assign a Arnold material to it. And then the final result you saw in the beginning, where it was just looks like, you know, looks like it's nice and polished and finalized. And I'm not going to do UVs or textures. I'm just going to simply assign material straight to the mesh and just do a quick you know, rig here in Maya. And here's the result. So I took the time and set up the rig, and then I also posed the character in some kind of a fun way, right? Give him a little life, and you can see what that looks like. It's just really simple, basic rigging, right? And I think with adding the light, so let me show you my setup, just so maybe you want to do something similar. But the setup is that I added, you can see it right here in my outliner. So I have the Sky Dome light, and the Sky Dome has the HDR assigned from Polyhaven. And then I have three simple lights on each side, and you can see the front light is kind of a warm orange light, and then the back light is the blue light, and then my rim light is just kind of also kind of a pinkish light. And then for to catch the shadows, I just added a simple plane. And I have a tutorial on all of this on my channel, but I just assigned a shadow catcher where it's just catching a shadow. So there you go. So you have something really cute, and it's totally fun at this point to turn on the control rig and just start animating. You can do little shorts for, you know, TikTok or YouTube. All right, so thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you learned something new, and I will see you in our next video.